Prepare for an unforgettable rugby experience at the 4th AEGEAN Rugby Festival in Hania, Crete, Greece on June the 7th and 8th, 2025. This one-of-a-kind event combines beach and sevens rugby on the same action-packed weekend. Group games are on Saturday with knockout stages on Sunday, all officiated by certified Rugby Europe referees. Compete with teams from across Europe and beyond and celebrate with an epic beach after party on Hania's Golden Sands. Prize money, exclusive goodies and memories that will last a lifetime await you. For full details, click on www.aegeanrugbyfestival.com and our Facebook and Instagram pages. See you there. Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg Shaped, and I am smiling like a very silly person. Today, I am absolutely delighted to have this guest on. Literally been chasing for a while, and we finally found some time. Both schedules are busy, but my guest's schedule is about to go crazy. She has exploded onto the scene. I'm still not really sure I know even the tip of the iceberg. We met in person. It's a story that we'll maybe tell at some point, and I hope I'll get to meet her again soon. But in the meantime, we get to do this, and we're going to learn a lot more about the one and the only, the fabulous Ruckstar Lizzie. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. And you've already got the shy, kind of humble voice on, wondering what's going to happen and where this is going to go. So I'm going to start with how we met. Now, I have to be really honest here. I had seen some of what you had done, but I wasn't really aware because I'm old. And then we met in Amsterdam, where I was coaching the Penguins men's squad, and you were part of the first women's 15s touring squad for the Penguins. And we met, and you just light the place up. Your personality, smile is just incredible and infectious. And we started to talk and things just started to spiral, and it was very cool. So that was when we first met. Now, please explain what I'm talking about when I say that I'd seen some of the stuff that you do. What is it that you've been doing?
So initially, I started off with challenges. So obviously now I do a lot more different rugby stuff. I started off doing challenges with the public, so just getting people involved in rugby. A lot of people, it was the first time they touched the rugby ball. And I also did the challenges at like tournaments and games and stuff, and that's quite fun too, because then you've got actual rugby fans and rugby players doing all that fun stuff too. But yeah, oh my gosh, Amsterdam was it was so cool. I'm just thinking back to it now. It feels like almost a whole world away.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But it was a cool thing.
Yeah, it was really cool. Because I'd never done I played like a season abroad, but I'd never done like a tour in 15s. That was really cool.
Yeah, there was some great people on that trip, and to have the men and the women together, to be on the first 15s tour for the Penguins together was really cool. So when you say you were doing challenges, I suppose why were you doing challenges?
Well, just to make the game more accessible, because I think with the challenge type content, it means that anyone could find that video entertaining, even if they didn't know anything about rugby. Because a lot of the time when we do rugby content, and we use specific rugby jargon and language that if you're not already into it, you wouldn't understand. And that means that it's harder for people to get into it, because if they don't understand quite quickly, especially these days, attention spans are just not there. So if you don't get it within a couple of seconds, you just click off. Whereas like challenges were very accessible, like anyone can watch it and find, if you do this challenge, you can win a prize. And it's just really easy to get.
But you just did it because you enjoyed it. You enjoyed the game of rugby. You were using it as a way to connect to people. Could you have looked into your crystal ball and seen where this was going to go? Was that an intention, or were you just doing it to do it?
To be fair, initially, before doing the challenges, I did more content without my face, and it was more to promote just like women in rugby. So it was called Ruckstar. So that's like Ruckstar Lizzie comes from. the platform was called Ruckstars, and I would like interview different players and like stakeholders in the game, and write articles about them and post bits on Instagram, and I would clip games or clip the moments that I found were really cool, where if it was Marley Packer or Poppy, just cool clips from different games, some from the Brazilian team, the Brazilian Sevens team and things like that, the Black Ferns, and also tips. So tips like where to find good rugby kit, or how to manage your mind as an athlete, like things like that. And it's funny because I had a girl that reached out to write for me as well. So her name was Ashley, and she was really good. I think she probably still would want to be in rugby journalism in some capacity, but she was, so Ashley, I don't know if she'll see this, but she was really cool, Ashley Rollins. So we would just like do content about other players, and I didn't show my face at all. It's not something that was actually natural to me, which is a lot of people get surprised when they're like because I can communicate really well, and I do all this stuff now, but it wasn't something that I necessarily intended to do at the start. I prefer privacy actually.
So when you talk about breaking down jargon, introducing to a new audience, what was it got you into rugby?
Oh yeah, it was my family. So my little brother played rugby at the local club, and then the club started a women's team. Actually, it was Sandra. So Sandra's the one that organizes all the Penguin stuff as well, where we met. So Sandra Sola Gomez then started a women's team at this club, a girls' team. Sorry, I was like a teenager. So girls' team, and then obviously to feed into a women's team down the line. And I actually didn't want to do it because I'd watched rugby, and it just looked.
And it's a stupid sport.
I was like, I don't know about this, but my sister said, let's do it. And we all, at the time, whenever we started hobbies, we tended to start them together. So we did cadets, we did it all together. Rugby, obviously we then started rugby together. And yeah, it was, at first it was touch. So it was, you're not straight into the deep end. But then they built into contact within a few months, and it just, just kind of, years later, I'm still here. So it clearly, it was a turning point that I didn't realize was a turning point,
And what was it that kept you in it? Because you've mentioned other things that you started there, but this one seems to be the thing that's kept hold. So what was it about rugby that kept hold?
Ooh. I think it was the community aspect. Because even at that first club, I think Sandra, I was going to say, she did really well. She did really well, where everyone just felt really comfortable. It was almost like a second home going down to the club, and everyone knew each other. And and I think, yeah, there's something.
There's some stories popping into your head now that you're wondering, can I tell?
I was like, but yeah, no. I don't know if I can.
No, I don't know if you can either. I'm a bit concerned who you're going to drop in, especially when you mentioned Sandra's name.
Okay,
it's like, there's all sorts going through my head now.
Oh, honestly, fine. I'll tell you after. Honestly, she's brilliant, and yeah, I think that definitely at the local level there was that community aspect, and then started to go through county, and then there's centre of excellences and all that kind of stuff as well. So I think, yeah, I like the community aspect, but then also in terms of playing, I used to do jiu-jitsu and netball and athletics, and I kind of feel like rugby brings them all together. No, right?
Yeah, I can see that, the way you throw people around, but the way you move and the way, the skills in there. Yeah, I can see that. So rugby then, you were playing just because it was the thing to do. The club made you feel at home. You started to build some relationships. And then things like county started to appear. Did you start to think, right, there's a pathway here for me?
In terms of a pathway to progress in the sport, yes. But I still wasn't sure what the end would look like. So I was just kind of taking things as it came, So from the local stuff, and they said, oh yeah, do you want to do a county tryout? Okay, yeah, sure. And then doing the county stuff, and then said, oh, do you want to try out for Central Excellence? Okay, yeah, sure. It was, yeah. So it wasn't necessarily. I never thought about it in that way. I was just saying yes as things came along, and then back then there was TDG, which was like the England under-18 setup. I don't know what they call it now because they change it every few years. It changes.
Keep somebody in marketing in a job.
Perhaps. So then, tried for that, and, you're like, okay, cool. And then now you're going all over the country for different rugby stuff. Like you had camps in like the Midlands, and for me that felt so far. What am I doing here? So yeah, that aspect as well. But it was never, it was just kind of taking it as it all came, really. And then shortly after that period, because TDG was around sixth form time, and just after sixth form, I did an internship in journalism as well. And so yes, journalism, multimedia journalism and sports journalism, and they put me on a lot of rugby stuff. Again, that was quite insane because then you were seeing a lot of the players and I remember going to a press conference, and I was actually 18. So press conference, and it was Eddie Jones, and then because this internship was at the Guardian. So they're like, oh yeah, we're interviewing him. I was like, okay. And then a bunch of other players as well. There was like Sam Underhill, and then afterwards there was this room, and we were all just in this room. I think Itoji walked by, and there was someone else doing this internship with me, and he had no clue about rugby. I think he was really into cricket. So he went up to Itoji and went, oh yeah, hi, I'm, I forgot his name. I think Ash. His name was Ash. He goes, oh yeah, hi, I'm Ash. And then Itoji goes, oh, hi, I'm Maro. What?
And did Eddie Jones, Maro Itoji, no disrespect, but an 18-year-old kid, did they know that's what you were there for?
No, to be fair, I was probably just in the part of the furniture, right? So I was shadowing, just taking notes. And when we went for some of the interviews, I was just there recording had the little I was recording. I still have the recordings actually as well on my other phone, wherever it is, because I still have the phone. That was So I think that's the time when I was playing and then doing that was the first taste of the off-pitch side of rugby as well.
And when you started to play, were you aware of female rugby players? Did you have any heroes or role models to look up to?
See, this is the thing, because even me, when I first started playing, I knew a lot of the men, the male players, but I didn't even know the female players myself, really, until a few years in. It was a few years in, and I think it was probably, again, sixth form time, I actually went to my first women's game. It was England v Scotland, the Six Nations.
Yeah, let's not talk about that result.
You can guess who won.
Yeah, I can.
But yeah, and gradually started to actually see some of the female players, because it wasn't really as they weren't really as visible. Because even during that internship, we did a ton of stuff with the male players. I remember Lazowski and this player and that, but we didn't do anything with the women at all at that time. Obviously, I wasn't there for a long amount of time, so maybe it was just the time period. I don't know. But during that summer, we didn't do anything with the women.
So when you think back to that period to now, the growth of the women's game is insane.
It's like another universe. It's honestly, even the fact that the Prem's on TNT, it's insane.
And your journey in that time, when you were being an intern for journalism, what was the future? Was it to be a journalist, a print journalist, or what? Did you have a plan, or were you a bit like rugby? You were just doing what was in front of you?
It was more because my degree was in French and business. So the whole rugby and writing, all of those things were things that I was interested in and passionate about, but I'd never fathomed them as careers. I thought at the time, the careers that I saw, lawyer or doctor or go into finance or whatever, that was, teacher, that kind of stuff. That was what I envisioned as a career. But in terms of the rugby and the writing, I was just pursuing what I liked, essentially.
And pouring your passion into something has meant that you've done more of it, and now it's becoming, I don't know if you're going to call it a career, but it's becoming the thing you do.
Which is so straight, because everyone was asking, you study journalism, was this like your like, so yeah, it's so strange.
And now when you see some of the female players having not known who they are, and the journey over the last few years to the point they're at now, where the Prem is being televised, the social media, and the women understand how important social media is to raise their profile and the profile of their game. You know, people are talking about Ilona Maher, and the World Cup's coming up and tickets are flying. Are you aware of your role in some of that, of bringing people into the game and spreading the word?
I guess of my role. To be fair, I think, so again, that's kind of where the Ruckstars came in, as I wanted to shine light on a lot of the players, because by the time I did start Ruckstars as a platform, it was from being aware of the lack of coverage. So as a player, I was starting to obviously connect with loads of the other women, and I think it was kind of from during uni that I obviously, this was at Richmond, started to connect with loads of other players and see the women's landscape better from the ground, and then having understood the media landscape from before, and I'd seen that there was that's when I noticed the divide, because I was seeing a lot of the women didn't even know where to watch their own games.
Yeah.
I did a survey actually as well. I did a survey just about coverage, and I just went into a couple of the rugby group chats that I was in at the time, and a lot of the women weren't even players, but people who were playing rugby all the time didn't know where to find other women's games. They would just watch little clips online that they could find here and there. Having seen where the men were, even a couple of years before, with all these press conferences and this and that, I just thought, okay, what can we do for the women? And in an ideal world, I thought we could have some kind of, streaming app, and we could stream women's rugby, all this kind of stuff. And I realized that was quite ambitious at the time. So for me, social media was the most accessible way to do that, because it was free. You can just start posting, so no one can actually stop you from just posting about anything. So that's why Ruckstars came in. So it was to promote the women initially, in a way that was just easy and accessible to me at the time, because I knew I could just start posting stuff about women. Hey, there's this game that's going on. Oh, this is the most capped player. I think at the time that I did Ruckstars, it was Rocky Clark, but now Sarah Hunter picked her at the post now, so Sarah Hunter's the most capped. But things like that, just fun facts. I
love that you were doing it to promote other things, and actually what happened was it promoted you beyond probably your wildest dreams.
It really wasn't my intention, because even at Richmond, when I kind of, even at Richmond, I remember speaking to someone saying, "Oh, we should do more socials. Like, we need to get the socials up and things like this." But I find that it's much easier to suggest things to someone once you've done it yourself. Because even before I did it as my own face, which that wasn't the intention at the start. But since I've used my own face, it's much easier for me to go to some place and be like, "Hey, maybe you should do this," and people come to me and ask. In fact, people DM me, and I've hopped on calls with players, Premiership players and stuff, and we've gone through. Okay, this is what you should do, maybe, and they've asked me questions.
Has Ilona Maher been in touch?
Ilona Maher doesn't need me at all. Honestly,
When do you get to meet her, or have you met her?
No, I haven't met her. I haven't met her yet. I know she's around for another few weeks or so before she heads back over the pond. But she will be here for a while, obviously. Well, I mean, fingers crossed. Obviously, they haven't announced the squad yet, but I think everyone's hoping that she's going to make the team for.
Can you imagine if she wasn't selected for the World Cup? It would be the only equivalent could be Lionel Messi not going to the World Cup. It would just be nonsense. She has to be there.
Yeah.
And some of the Aussie Sevens players, I think, are sticking their hand up, aren't they? Charlotte Caslick's talking about it. The Levi sisters are talking about it. I think
cool. Yeah.
There's quite a lot. It'd be interesting to see if Michaela, she's not Blade anymore, break if she makes a go from the Sevens to. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. it's an incredible year for the game for women, and hopefully just for the game in general. I think everybody's excited by it. When you speak into players, are they doing it because they're trying to promote their own brand to supplement maybe a playing salary that's not a lot, or are they doing it to promote the game? Where do you see their motivations coming?
I guess without disclosing too much about the specifics, people, but someone's kind of DM'd me, oh, do you know how to get more sponsorships and stuff? So we had a chat. And then also on the immediate other side, I've had another person who's reached out to ask me more about the broadcasting stuff. So again, we just had a chat. Also, how do you, just tips on on that kind of thing too. But yeah, I from what I see from players, it seems to be a lot of interest seems to be in the sponsorship aspect, and also just growing the brand. But I don't think that's and I think it's good for a lot of the players to grow their own brands, because ultimately people connect with people, and that's what I've learned as well now, actually, from having more of a faceless brand, or trying to then have a brand with a face. People do seem to connect with people. And
one of the things I looked into this week, I was doing stuff with a group of kids, and Mo Salah has more Instagram followers than Liverpool.
Yeah. And you see that in the business world as well. Like Richard Branson has more followers than Virgin and things like that, right? So people do connect with people. And so if you're trying to grow the sport, I think the most effective way is to grow the sport through people. Yeah. But the thing with rugby though is I find that rugby the rugby culture, especially in England, I can't really speak for all nations. Rugby culture in England is really built on humility, right? You don't be too showy, don't be too flashy, don't over celebrate, things like that. And that really clashes with the concept of having a personal brand. I think the type of person that would be really into rugby isn't necessarily the type of person that wants to be super visible. I can speak on that as someone that didn't want to be initially.
Yeah, no, I get that. I hide behind happiness is egg-shaped, but there is probably that humility. I think you're right. No one's ever put it to me like that before. So you're doing the challenges, which you become known for, and you start to do it with rugby players. Was there ever a point where you pinched yourself and thought, oh, I can't believe I'm here doing this with these people? Was there a tipping point where you thought, wow, this has got serious? Not that your challenges are serious, but you get what I mean. That you've kind of
it's gone from just having, oh, if you can do this trick,
you're on the street in a shopping precinct trying to get some stranger to take the ball out of your hand. But then I've seen you on TV, I've seen you in stadiums, I've seen you with at training grounds, I've seen you in some incredible places. But was there a point where you thought, wow, this thing has got to a point where...
I think probably BBC last year, it was Stuart Hogg on the Six Nations sim bit, and that was probably the moment. I was going to say Dublin the year before, but I didn't even have time to process it, because actually I just finished uni, my final exam of uni. I had my little bag there in the exam hall. I said, okay, you may leave. Had my bag, ran to London City Airport to get the flight to Dublin, to then do the stuff with TNT. And obviously I met, Brian O'Driscoll and Hugo Monnier and everyone, Maggie Alfonsi, Sarah, everyone. But I that almost feels like a blur, because I'd run, literally the morning I was in the exam hall, the evening I was at the European Cup.
Did you pass the exam?
Oh yeah, I did actually.
Yeah, of course you did. You smashed it. I've got no doubt you did. So you get to Dublin.
At all.
What was your role at something like that? Because if you're in a room with some huge hitters there, I mean, you've named some of the biggest. Sarah Hunter's now England's most capped player. Brian O'Driscoll, British Irish Lions captain. Like you're in a room with giants of the game. What's your role when you're there?
Well, I was just doing the same thing that I was doing. I was doing the challenges, and then a bit of talking about the game and And also talking about, at the time, BT was transitioning to TNT. So just talking about that. And to be fair, that there in Dublin was when someone asked me if I'd want to be a presenter. And I was like, oh, no. No, because it wasn't on my radar at all. So I just did the challenges and stuff. I don't know. And I met a lot of the commentators, and I was seeing their notebooks. And you see the different ones have different levels. So one, some of them have really in-depth notes, pages and pages. Some of them are just like they just kind of not wing it, but they're probably prepared a different way. I don't want to say wing it.
Prepare a different way. It's the ones who have all the different color pen and the little symbols and and it's a sheet this size in front of them. I don't know how they find anything, but it's impressive when you see that. And then some have got the iPad and able to, and then there's some that wing it. You're absolutely right. So you're then, who's called? Is someone just calling you and saying, Lizzie, we need you to be here. Lizzie, can you do this? Lizzie, can you do this? Was there any plan to it, or were you just accepting calls and accepting invites?
Yeah, they were just in my email, because my email was in my bio. So people just email me, and I'll just turn up, I guess. That's my thing. Like, there's no, because even at this point, it was still not. This wasn't a
You're just doing it because you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think until it was until last year that I thought, oh, okay, this could be a thing.
And when you're with, male players that have played for British and Irish Lions and female players that have won World Cups, and you're getting them to do a challenge, and they're laughing, or they can't believe that they can't take the ball out of your hand, or they what happens off camera? Are they going like, how do you do that? Like, what's the magic? Are you like, what's the chat off camera when you're with them?
Just normal stuff, like, oh, what you're up to in life. The same thing you chat with about anyone. Like, it was just like you just have normal conversations. Oh yeah, I'll be heading here. Oh yeah, I can't do it yet. Like just normal conversation. I think with Stuart Hogg, though, after BBC, we actually ended up doing that chat afterwards. We did it about 5 or 6 times afterwards, because he couldn't, he wouldn't.
Just hated that you did it. Yeah.
No, and he did manage to do it after the 6th time. But it was just that was quite surprising, because it makes you realize that it never leaves you, that competitive spirit.
And your competitive spirit. So all the while where you're doing challenges and you're being asked to go to this and be part of this, you're still trying to play as well.
Yeah. So it's trying to navigate all of that together, because even when we met in 2023, I think 2022 was when I started doing the challenges. I was in France. I was staying in France mostly, but then when I would just do the challenges wherever I was traveling to. So I did some in Mexico, and then in Spain as well, because the first Penguins tour I went on was in Spain.
Benidorm.
Yeah, Benidorm. Obviously, Sandra organised that, and in fact, that was my first sevens tournament ever. And I got a buffalo. They gave me a buffalo because I asked how long the games were, because I'd never played. I never played sevens. So Sandra just said, "Oh, hey, look, we're doing a sevens. It's first women's sevens." Penguins, do you want to come? And I was like, it's in Spain. I was like, yeah, sure. I've never played sevens in my life, ever.
That was your first game in sevens?
Yeah, 2022. It was like May, I think. So yeah, I did some. So, but wherever I was, I would just do some of these challenges. So I did some there, and then I got the sevens bug. So then when we came back from Spain, I would just play any sevens that was available. So just a ton of different teams. Jesters, Tropics, I don't know. I'm trying to think whoever.
Lions,
obviously built into Lions. That was after the summer, so that was when I was at London Irish. Obviously this is all super scattered. So just I played for Savvy as well during the summer by accident, because we're doing Saracens it was Saracens pre-season.
How can you play for somebody by accident?
It was Saracens pre-season, and then I was friends with a girl called Cookie. She's honestly great player, and she said that she wanted to go. She played for Savi at the time. That was her favourite sevens team. And they said there was going to be a tournament in Norwich or somewhere. I had no business being in Norwich. and so we had just done pre-season, and they had us doing sprinting and skis and all this stuff. Saris, and she was like, "Oh, do you want to come with me to this tournament? My team's playing. We can just watch." I was like, "Okay, cool." So we drove to Norwich. I don't know why. So we drove there, and we turned up to watch the team, and we're there, and they have 5 players. And there's 2 of us. And
classic.
They've already gotten to the quarterfinal or something with 5 players somehow. I don't know. And they're like, "Oh, great, there's 2 of you." We've just done 2 hours of training for pre-season. Okay, so now I'm playing for Sammy. Nice. And then we won.
Of course you did. I knew that was how that story ended.
Sammy won. And so then we went to they'd rented out some place. So then we kind of all the girls got together and yeah, we won. So and then ended up going back and staying with Cookie because there were no trains, or by the time everyone had left. So yeah, that's how I ended up playing for Savvy. And that was and then that was Saris, and then London Irish. I'd played some girls from London Irish. I'd played with at Richmond, and they said they were looking for people, so joined them as well. And it was from London Irish. There was a girl, Nicole, and Nicole would always she'd always say, "Oh yeah, I'm part of the sevens team. It's the Lions. You should join. You're fast, blah blah blah." And she would just kind of say it at training casually, and we never really went into it. But then one day she came up to me and she's like, Lizzie, I'm serious now. Someone's broken their leg. We're going to Grenada in 2 weeks and we need someone. It's your lucky day. Please come to this training session.
Going to Grenada.
It's your lucky day. Can you imagine? Because she's so blunt. She's Dutch as well. So
lovely.
They're very to the point.
Yeah.
So funny. She was like, just come. So we went to this training session, and then there was Mark. I'm going to have a chat with Mark later this week, actually. Mark Francis. He was the, I think, the director of rugby for them. And so we arrived at the place we were training, and he said, there's a group of girls, and he goes, "Okay, ladies, at the end of the session, one of you is going to Grenada." So we did the session, and at the end, he pulled me to the side. He said, "You're going to Grenada." I was like, "Okay." Okay, cool. Sure. I mean, I'm to the Caribbean. I mean, what else am I supposed to say?
Prepare for an unforgettable rugby experience at the 4th AEGEAN Rugby Festival in Hania, Crete, Greece on June the 7th and 8th, 2025. This one-of-a-kind event combines beach and sevens rugby on the same action-packed weekend. Group games are on Saturday with knockout stages on Sunday, all officiated by certified Rugby Europe referees. Compete with teams from across Europe and beyond and celebrate with an epic beach after party on Hania's Golden Sands. Prize money, exclusive goodies and memories that will last a lifetime await you. For full details, click on www.aegeanrugbyfestival.com and our Facebook and Instagram pages. See you there. Yeah, so it's going from not really knowing what was going on. I've now been to Grenada to play a game that I don't really understand. I've won a tournament that I turned up to watch, and I've finished an exam, and I've gone to Dublin and met the who's who of British and Irish rugby. Yeah, it's things have been interesting. And then when you're playing because you love it. Are you playing with the desire to climb into what's the playing target? Is there a playing target?
Everyone says this. I guess I want to be the best player that I can be, I think, and see where that goes, because I think it's always good to know how far or how good you can get, essentially. But I think also now with everything that's going on, I'm trying to figure out how everything makes sense all together. And that's something that I'm still trying to consciously work out, even right now. Because what started off as just a fun thing is kind of
escalated.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm still figuring it all out.
Oh, that's fair, and you're allowed to. But you obviously still love playing, and it gives you access. Like you were saying, it's easier to communicate something if you're experiencing it. So you're still playing. You're then able to communicate. You know some of the issues. You know the personalities. You're still putting yourself into that situation. So as you start to communicate, has that changed? Before you were trying to get people into it, has the aim of your communications changed?
Not the aim, but I think whereas initially it was more, okay, let's get more people into the sport. Now there's been so much response from within the sport that I also partially feel a sense of responsibility to balance the two. So kind of, yeah. So it is a bit of both.
and as the game grows and we start to get, personalities posting, so the GB players have the GB Sevens players have a tough gig. They have to train on their own. There's not a huge amount of money or support, so they post quite a lot. And then you've got bigger personalities who are able to command a bigger audience, and then you've got your Red Roses who are potentially going to be World Cup winners by the end of the year, which will do enough for their profile in hopefully the way it did for the Lionesses a couple of years ago. So there are some who have got it kind of sorted, but there's almost like a layer of player underneath that who are desperate to push into being a Premiership player, potentially becoming international at some point, but just very, very good players with stories to tell. Where do you see their stories and communication? How are they going to grow their brand and develop their sort of image, I suppose?
I think it depends on the personality of the player. So I've thought about this a lot, and I know that different people have different personalities, but also interests. So like for me, I did challenges because I just thought it was fun. But some people might really be into food and nutrition. So actually, maybe the niche of nutrition for athletes and through what they do for themselves could be an angle. Or for other people, I think like everyone's going to have different niches depending on what they particularly like to do. So for some, like there could be a player right now that they're the hairdresser in the changing room. They're always the hairdresser.
Yeah, like Ellis at Loughborough doing the plaits.
So then literally that could be a whole like series on their channel of, oh, this is the hair that I did for this person on game day. And that's easier because you're documenting rather than creating. Because I think that's also where it gets difficult, because if you're actually trying to train all the time, because I've been in situations where you're training multiple times a day, doing all this stuff, and you're like, where is the time for this? But I think sometimes documenting rather than creating is easier because you're doing this thing anyway. So if you're training a lot, maybe gym content or just rugby training content in general as well. Because if you're training anyway, just have someone capture it. That sometimes is easier. And then also, I guess, making your goal public. And I think this is really hard for a lot of people because no one likes to say, oh, yeah, I want to do this. Especially in the UK, I've seen it. I think Americans, for example, are very comfortable saying, "I'm going to go all the way, man."
Yeah,
where I'm going, bro. Like they're very comfortable letting people know what they want to do. I think in the UK, again, there's this. It feels like almost like a tall poppy syndrome of you don't want to say, "Oh," but when you do say, "Okay, this is where I want to go," you find that a lot of people actually back you. I mean, Zia Lima is a perfect example. She has said it for years and years that she wants to be the first Black female Muslim to play for England. She wants to play for England. Like that's her thing. She got it on her wall.
Yeah.
Same thing. There's I think Kaizen. I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram. Kaizen Rugby. He's saying like whatever day it is now of trying to be a professional rugby player. I think it's hundreds of, I don't know now. But again, he's kind of let it know, I'm trying to go pro. And you see his training, you see what he's eating, all that kind of stuff. So I think sometimes things like that could be good, letting people know, and then just documenting what you're already doing. Oh, there's also I'm thinking about it. I think it's flying.
I like the little light bulb going off there as you remembered that.
No, because I'm also thinking of like the youngest generation, right? So like flying Finn or
Finlay Woods with all his goal kicking. Yeah.
So imagine in 10 years' time, he's at England's 10, and you've got decades of footage of him training. Oh my goodness, that's going to be exciting. And that's the future of the sport. Same thing with that rugby girl, Frankie. Really, really sweet. She's a lovely girl. But again, with her, whether she goes all the way in playing, all the way in the media aspect, again, in 2040, you're going to have decades.
She's coming for your job. She's coming for your gig.
I'll happily give it to her. I'll pass the baton. And I can go back to minding my own business.
There's no way you're going back to minding your own business. Right, here's a bigger question for you. Is it harder for the female rugby players to do these things?
Harder in what way?
So you said the sort of tall poppy or setting your stall out there. There's still, social media is a fabulous thing, and it has been for both of us, but it can also be a pretty tough place to be. When female athletes post things, do you think it's harder for them, or do you think there are opportunities there?
I think, I don't know. I wouldn't see why it would be harder. Or do you think more pressure on social media in general? Or
you get, and I don't really want to give him any airtime, but there's a former footballer who is very open in saying how terrible women's football is, and some of the players are not up to this, that, and the other. I mean, I've blocked him on, I think, all the social media that I've got, because I don't really want to see or read what it is. Yeah. And I'm not really aware of too much of that, but I can post stuff on my social media, and I try and read all the comments, but sometimes it's difficult. And every now and then there will be some kind of ridiculous comment about the standard of play or whatever it is. And there's still obviously huge discrepancies. England women are, at the moment, they appear to be quite far in front of everybody else, and there's a lot of catching up, and the club game's still got a way to go. Is it, like, how do you advise people on that, or maybe you don't, but what's your feeling on, is that an impact? Is that having an impact, or are people just ignoring it and getting on with it?
Just kind of hate comments, or I guess just, I'd say ignore it and get on with it, really. I know that's hard. Like, it's easier said than done. Yeah. It is easier said than done.
But there almost feel, I just wonder if there's an acceptance still. And for a lot of women, there aren't many full-time professional roles at the moment compared to the men. So it's almost easier and possibly more acceptable for a man to say, I'm going to become that thing. Whereas for a 15-year-old to say, here's what's going to happen, maybe it's becoming more real because of the way the game's moved in the last few years. But I just wonder, when you're in sevens teams and probably playing with young, ambitious players who want to go on and do things, are they finding it difficult to get taken seriously and get the right access to coaching, competition, if they're not in a pathway already?
Ooh. I see what you mean. So in terms of, if by a certain point, usually like maybe 21 or something, if they're not already in a pathway, but they're still a good standard.
A lot of women are still coming to the game late, aren't they? Because there isn't the opportunity. So, everybody loves Z and wants to be an England player, and she's a phenomenal role model for so many. But she really has put herself up there to be shot at, hasn't she?
I guess yes, but then also depends on what you're focusing on, because at the same time, she's probably not thinking about the people that are trying to knock her down. She's thinking about the people that will see her and that she can help. And
that's back to what you say, and it's kind of the mindset, isn't it? It's what you're after. It's what you pay attention to and what you give oxygen to. So maybe I'm asking a question that's not really relevant. I'm interested in. So I know a lot of the Scottish players, and it's difficult because the competition up here isn't strong enough yet. So they have to go south, or they go to France to get the level of competition. To raise the standard, and it's tough, and there's a huge number of players in Scotland who want to get better and want to play, but there aren't that many opportunities for them. So where do they go, how do they do it, and how do they get taken seriously? And the game is, I mean, the women's game's growing. The number of clubs and the players are growing, but there isn't as many opportunities for them.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So in terms of initial opportunities, I'd say start with what you've got. So if you're already playing for a team, I mean, ideally, if there's a VO and there's recordings, like play really well for that team. Whatever's in front of you right now, just whatever stage that you're given, perform really well on that stage. And then you can get your clips, right? And then you can probably email them to a club that you feel like could help you develop more. So you could create a list of clubs. I think people kind of underestimate the power of outreach. So maybe just, reach out to some clubs, send clips over. And I think social media would be really good as well to be posting the clips there, because then they're out there. People can see what you can do, and then other people might even see, oh, I know this, so that could be very useful. So I think starting with what you've got, really, and I guess having a decent highlight reel and a bit of gumption, you can probably do quite a bit.
Yeah, I love the attitude and maybe I'm asking the wrong person, because you've got such a focus, and I love it, and you passing that on to people and role modeling that can only be a good thing. Deal with what's in front of you, do it as well as you can, and then the next opportunity will come, and you're testament to that. That's what you've done, isn't it?
I think a lot of people are probably nervous to do that outreach as well. So I think because it's funny, I've had this conversation with a player recently about that, and he, created a long list of people to reach out to, and he's now moving teams as a result, actually, of that same thing.
Okay, and I love that, and it's a mindset thing. So as you look at what's going on now, you've played in some pretty cool teams, you've done some cool things, you're doing it because you enjoy it and you love it, and that comes across when you talk. When you started to do things with TNT and sort of big organizations, and it's maybe less of you and they want what you've got, how have you found that? Are you still able to be yourself?
I'd say so. Even ITV, it was so funny because leading up to it, so to before it was all agreed, had lunch with the Doyles, Craig Keith, and also producer as Keenan as well, had really cool, had the chats in between. And as time's passing, I wondered, do you get like a script or something? And then we had a meeting in a boardroom in an office the day before we were supposed to film. And you had everyone, the whole team's in there, ideas are bouncing around. And then someone else had mentioned that, a script and stuff. I was like, cool, wonder when I'll get mine. And I didn't say anything, just seeing. And then we got to Bath the next day. And then they just got the cameras, gave me a mic, and they was like, okay, cool, so do an intro. What? I told you, initially, it was not scripted. They just said, just be you.
Awesome.
Just be you. So I think, obviously, as time has gone on, if there's certain things that we really want to make sure we're talking about, like the Restart Rugby episode, we wanted to make sure that, okay, we're including certain things. But in general, they're
just be you. Awesome. I know you're very good at being everybody else, so I think that's the ideal direction to give you.
Yeah, the start kind of thing. But yeah, don't get me wrong, there's now there's where they've gone, okay, we want to make you maybe mention this thing and this thing, but they're very it's quite free flowing, I'd say, which wasn't I thought it would be super scripted, but
But
I don't know, should I even be sharing this?
No, absolutely. Well, hey, if it's not broke, it's all good to me, I think. When you're doing those things and you're engaging with people, what are you learning? How have things changed from the beginning?
What am I learning? To be fair, actually, I was shooting yesterday up in Leeds, and then I did an intro, and he said, "Oh no, cut, let's do it again." And he said, he said something that really stuck with me. It's really been playing on my head. He said, "Let your name land," because I said, "Oh, hi, I'm Lizzie," and da da da, and then he said, "No, cut. I'm like, okay, what's wrong? He's like, let your name land. And he said that he got told this when he was younger, or, you know, he's basically like, even if it's just a slight pause after you say, hi, my name is X, let your name land, and then continue. And it was such a weird thing. But it was just fresh in my mind because this was literally yesterday afternoon. But
that's cool though, and it's something else just to refine your craft, isn't it?
Yeah, again, I wasn't really expecting that. I mean, then also in general, there's a lot that I learn about, I guess, the wider like rugby, because rugby community as well. So I wasn't sure what you mean in terms of what have I learned so far. It's like there's a lot that I've learned, but I wasn't sure where we were gonna go with that. So
no, you're refining your craft. Well, what you were talking about the community at the beginning,
yeah,
and that was why you got involved. What have you learned about the community in the time that you've been involved?
Because I've seen the acceleration of how everything's just changed. I mean, to be fair, not everything. I'd say in terms of like the key family aspect of rugby, I think is still there. I think it's a really family friendly sport. Rather, you know, I mean, I don't know if you experience the same thing, but whenever I go to games, you'll see like families can go together. There's young kids, there's old people, there's everyone. I would say, I think for it to grow more, especially in London, I think there could be a wider audience that hasn't been tapped into yet.
So go on then. I'm keen to pick up on that one. How do you tap into that audience? Because there's Tackle London. There's you know, the professional clubs have got their foundations that do things. You've got people like you that are engaging with a wider audience. It's tough because it's not on TV, but then kids don't necessarily consume on TV. So where do you think there's opportunities to grow the game?
Yeah, obviously across all the socials. Because I was going to also add that I've been going into schools as well, especially schools in London. And so
I saw one of them on your socials, and I just thought, wow, imagine having you come in front of kids. It was just so cool.
So it's fun. Like the kids just get so excited because they're like, oh, what is this? And trying and I think it was quite entertaining to ask them, hey, what sport do you think I do without any context at all? What sport would you put me at? And they all said like athletics. So I think someone said horse riding or something. It was like crazy. And then you say rugby and they're like, huh? But then I've gone into another school, and it's funny, the teacher was saying how, I think she was from New Zealand, and she was saying, especially in London, they're not that good at, except for football, they don't know anything about sport. Like she was kind of observing the difference, because back home we were out playing footy. You know, she was saying how like everyone's out and about, but obviously in London it's not necessarily the case, especially in the inner city. Obviously kind of the outskirts, when you're looking at almost towards Kent or Surrey or Hertfordshire, like on the edges, you'll see more participation in wider sports in general, including rugby. But in the inner city, it's not quite there. And I think also there's a lack of space. But my argument is that, do you actually need that much space to start? Like, you don't need a whole 100-meter pitch to just throw a ball around a bit. And because you see kids play football in any space that they can find, they'll figure it out. Give them a football, they'll figure it out. And I think rugby could be the same.
So it's part of the issue. If you only know rugby, it is hard to replicate rugby in a small space. Whereas football, you can play pretty much anywhere.
But I imagine you probably could do the same with rugby, especially if you do like touch games.
But if you how do we spread that? How do we, how do the kids in London learn about that? If they go on to Insta, they'll see Ilona Mar run over the top of someone to score her first try. They'll see a line out catch maul. How can we break it down to make it something that is rugby without it looking like that thing on TV or socials?
Yeah, I think that's where little touch games can come in, and also those tricks and challenges, because you can just kind of mess around with each other and throw it around. I think there's a brand GG Rugby do it really well, where they encourage kids to, not just kids, they actually encourage everyone, but they encourage like tricks and challenges and trying to figure out ways of getting rugby into small spaces, no matter what. So you can play some form, or you can be touching a ball and experiencing rugby in whatever shape or form you can, essentially.
So as you look to this year, 2025, I mean, there's going to be bigger years for the women's game, of course there is, but this feels like an absolute tipping point where the Olympics have been. There's, there was the up from the Olympic sevens, the characters that have come out of that. DuPont wins a gold at home, and then Alona Mar storms on it. Now, the funny thing is, if you were to ask a lot of people who won the women's gold medal, they won't know, but they know who won the bronze because of Alona Mar. It's a crazy situation. But this year, we've got the Six Nations about to kick off, and then the World Cup is this year, and it's in England. If you're going to grow the game, it's probably the best country for it to be in at this point. If it was in Japan or South Africa, or it might not have that kick. So the timing feels ideal. What's your hopes? What's your thoughts? What's your wishes for this year?
Well, I just think that there could be more than the growth could just be massive. I think we could have a quantum leap in the same way everyone discusses the Lionesses, right? The football and what happened with them. And I can see a similar trajectory potentially happening, especially from this year, because there's so many characters, and as characters coming through, there's so much media coming through. I can see the momentum that's been building and building and building. So yeah, I'm super excited for a quantum leap for women's rugby and hopefully rugby as a whole.
Did England win it?
Yes. To be fair, I had this chat with Anne. So she does Black Girls Ruck, and she was saying that she thinks Canada might be a dark horse in the competition.
Okay.
To see the way they were played in the WXV, they were quite on form.
Yeah.
But
I think England at home just feels
that's what I'm saying.
too big.
Home, that was my thing. But we said that if England win, she buys me dinner. If Canada win, I buy her dinner. I think she's buying me dinner.
Yeah, I think she is too. I've got tickets for the opening game in Sunderland. I've got tickets for the game in Brighton, and I tried to get World Cup final tickets that I've not got my hands on yet, but I'm still going to keep trying because I want to be there. I'm a dad of 2 daughters. I want them to be there to see it. For Twickenham to be full for that and the world to be watching just feels like it's a must be there. The players, who's your pick? Who can you see coming out the other end with not necessarily an Alona Mar status or fame, but who can you see being the stars of this World Cup?
Of the stars, well, I think obviously a lot of people are going to have their eyes on Ellie Kildan. Naturally, she's in terms of momentum, like she's been building and going from strength to strength. Well, World Player of the Year, and even what was quite interesting was even afterwards, she literally said that she's like, even after everything, all of the success with that, she said that, okay, I need to work even harder now. And when you see that kind of mentality, you know that the trajectory is going to be good. In the similar way,
she's an example of what you were saying before. She said, "I want to be the best player in the world," and then she got it, which was it doesn't get much bolder than I want to be the best player in the world. And then I think within a year she became World Rugby Player of the Year. So it was a cool thing. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I mean she's a star in the making, isn't she?
So I do think a lot of eyes will be on her. And it's just, and it's interesting, but people that have that mentality of you just got to keep you've got to keep going and keep building and not let the noise, even positive noise.
Yeah. No, true. I really want Holly Aitchison to be the star of the show. I'm claiming her as my daughter. She's not.
Is she?
Her mum, whenever I post something about her on social media, I have a hashtag not my daughter, and her mum Denise always puts a comment, yeah, but she's mine, or She's my daughter. So Holly's mum always replies to stuff that I post because I claim her as mine, but I have a hashtag, not my daughter. I just think it's going to be awesome. I'm hoping Scotland go well. I think there's a chance for all the home nations to have a real crack at it. It would be amazing if Aussie were to send some of their sevens players, because Maddie Levi could, tear the place up and become a real star of the show. And we need role models in all the countries. We need Canada to perform and go well. We need Aussie, New Zealand. We want France to come to the party. We want it to be an amazing tournament. The men's World Cup is suffering a little bit because there's some games where teams are getting absolutely annihilated. I do worry that England do that in their group games, but it's just part of the journey. It's what has to happen.
Yeah, and I think the other nations will be catching up quickly. I think he'll be dangerous. I don't know about this. If not this time, the next time, the US, because the US they take sports seriously. So yes, they were late to the rugby party, but the way that their sporting programs in general are unmatched. They take sports seriously.
I kind of agree, and I think it might happen more quickly for the women than it has the men, because we've been saying that about the men for years, and it's still not really kicked in. Sevens to a certain extent, but the women, I think it will, especially
at least the next one. I think the US could actually be quite dangerous soon, because have you seen the WER as well?
Yeah, that looks interesting. I think there's also in America, because there's so many, even if you're not getting the first and second best athlete, but you're getting the third or the fourth, they're still going to be pretty special. And if you can get them to fall in love with rugby, there's a real opportunity for the Americans to fly.
Especially with I think they're so powerful with both the on-pitch and off-pitch angle too, because obviously you've got like a loner, but then even the other players, you've got Nayatapa, who's very visible too, and
class.
But then that's going to attract the right people to come to support the games, to fund the games, to do all the things that you need for sports to grow. So I think that could be interesting. If not this one, because I don't know if this would be too soon, but by the next one, I reckon the US could be really dangerous.
You'll be flying back and forward over the pond, right? We need you in New York, right? We need you in LA, right? We need you in that. You're going to be all over that. Lizzie, I've absolutely loved speaking to you. I've kept you for a really long time, but I could speak to you for such a long. Your smile's infectious. Your view's awesome. Your mindset is so positive. You're doing so much to grow the game. I'm gonna get you to finish with one last question. So, for me, happiness is egg-shaped, but for you, Lizzie, happiness is.
Wait, I can say anything. I didn't show all this. Book shaped, is that a thing? I really like reading.
I really like reading. I could take that. I could take that. Are you? So you must be. There must be a book on the horizon at some point. Your life story. That'll be awesome.
Oh, for a couple of people have said that.
Yeah, I reckon. Strike while the iron's hot. Tell the story till now, and then you get another book deal out of the next bit, and then and then there'll be a kids line. You can do a kids book, and then there'll be a here's how to be a social media star, and then there'll be here's how to. Yeah, I think there's a whole. You need to get onto your agent.
Okay, I'll let her know. We'll be like, Bruce said, okay.
Bruce said, yeah, Bruce will speak to her. Lizzie, thank you. Amazing to see you. Look after yourself, and hopefully we'll see each other in real life at some point soon.
Yes. Okay.
I absolutely loved that. What a superstar. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can listen on Apple, Acast and Spotify. Sign up, tell your friends, leave a review. It would be amazing for you to tell everybody that we are back, the Happiness Is podcast. If you enjoyed it, Apple, Acast, Spotify, you can watch on YouTube, catch us on Facebook, across all the socials. But in the meantime, my name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. Speak to you all again very, very soon. Prepare for an unforgettable rugby experience at the 4th AEGEAN Rugby Festival in Hania, Crete, Greece on June the 7th and 8th, 2025. This one-of-a-kind event combines beach and sevens rugby on the same action-packed weekend. Group games are on Saturday with knockout stages on Sunday, all officiated by certified Rugby Europe referees. Compete with teams from across Europe and beyond and celebrate with an epic beach after party on Hania's Golden Sands. Prize money, exclusive goodies and memories that will last a lifetime await you. For full details, click on www.aegeanrugbyfestival.com and our Facebook and Instagram pages. See you there.